Chosen one, there's a powerful and often overlooked hazard that ensnares even the most devoted, the ones walking closest to their divine path. It's not a sudden dramatic failure. Rather, it's a silent drain on your spiritual energy, a slow blurring of your purpose. This trap isn't external, attacking you from the outside. It resides right within your own heart, frequently masked as being prudent, wise, or even having heightened spiritual discernment. The shocking reality is that many who are truly set apart stumble into this, genuinely believing they are protecting themselves, while this exact internal shift is subtly blocking their intended blessings, diminishing their spiritual gifts, and inviting a kind of low-grade, persistent resistance. They simply don't understand. Stay with this message. This is not just a general lecture. This is a direct, timely intervention straight from a place of divine care. Chosen one, take a moment and understand this deeply. Your presence here is not accidental. There has been an unseen, persistent pressure following you, quietly pressing against your inner self, slowing down your momentum in ways you couldn't quite put your finger on. The time has come for heaven to step in and expose this internal mechanism before it takes a deeper hold. There's a pattern, so quiet, so incremental, almost beneath the level of conscious thought, that affects even those with the deepest spiritual insight and the keenest awareness. It doesn't arrive with a big shock or an earthquake. It starts as a subtle, internal disagreement, a tiny, almost imperceptible emotional deviation, a hairline crack in the strong spiritual foundation you've diligently built. That small spiritual fracture doesn't heal itself. Instead, it expands slowly and silently until it becomes a formidable force. This internal pressure is strong enough to fog your normally clear perception, corrupt your natural discernment, severely impede divine communication, and make you begin to doubt truths you once held with unwavering certainty. Most chosen ones instinctively assume any attack is coming from outside. From envious people, unseen opposition, general spiritual warfare, or external distractions trying to pull them away from their designated destiny. Yet, the truth is far more critical and closer to home. The most potent attack often settles deep within the heart long before the mind registers the threat. In reality, the enemy frequently doesn't need to launch a full-scale assault to break your will from the exterior. His main objective is often simply to convince you that you can afford to ignore the subtle shifts happening internally. And this creeping, quiet, internal compromise is the exact hidden mechanism that siphons power and life from even the most spiritually robust individuals. Today, we're not just discussing this issue, we are directly exposing it. Today, the divine light confronts it without reservation. Today, the surrounding spiritual haze will lift, and the internal authority that has been yours all along will be restored to its rightful, fully functional place. By the time you finish engaging with this message, a significant weight will lift off your spirit. It'll be something you may not have even realized you were burdened by. And as that weight breaks, your natural clarity, your spiritual strength, and your alignment with your divine purpose will begin to rapidly ascend once more. Before we proceed further, chosen one, please take a quick moment and engage in a small but powerful spiritual action. Hitting the like button helps ensure this critical message finds every soul who needs this intervention right now. Subscribing is a declaration that you recognize the divine reason you're being led back here. And finally, take a moment to comment 99 below. Why the number 99? In the spiritual realm, 99 represents that crucial, final moment just before completion. It's the moment heaven steps in to finish what you, in your human strength, could not fully complete. By commenting it, you are making a bold, public declaration that you are fully prepared and ready for the pivotal shift that is about to begin right now. The most devastating spiritual collapses are never accompanied by loud noises or dramatic fanfare. They do not start with sudden, cataclysmic warnings or instant destruction. These internal pitfalls begin in the most quiet places within your spirit, in moments so insignificant you barely register them as important. They don't start with blatant disobedience or a spectacular moral failure. They originate with a tiny, subtle shift deep within the heart, a shift that often feels completely innocuous, easily justified, or even like a sensible, self-protective choice. This occurs when you find yourself repeatedly replaying a confusing or hurtful past moment, telling yourself you're merely trying to gain better understanding, completely unaware that each replay is physically carving a deeper, more entrenched negative groove into your spirit. It happens when a past spiritual or emotional injury you genuinely believed was fully healed still sends a small, low-grade pulse of discomfort through your chest whenever the memory of the person or event that caused it surfaces. It occurs when you genuinely claim to have released a past offense, yet your body exhibits a subtle but noticeable physical tension when the memory inevitably resurfaces. It's also present when a significant disappointment you quickly minimized and brushed aside starts to occupy a persistent, silent space in the corners of your mind. It's not disruptive enough to ruin your day, but it's just enough to gradually alter your internal, emotional chemistry. These micro shifts, these minute internal disturbances, are the true, foundational beginning of spiritual misdirection. They seem far too small to matter in the grand scheme of your life, but they are critically important because the forces of darkness rarely attempt to breach a chosen one through a frontal attack. They slip in through the almost invisible hairline cracks, a negative thought pattern repeated so frequently it erodes your spiritual defenses, a deeply suppressed emotion that slowly but surely drains your internal joy, a minor offense you deemed too unimportant to properly address or release. These small, internal fractures start as mere moments of discomfort, but without a powerful, proactive awareness, they quickly become open doorways. And through those neglected doorways creep in things you never consciously intended to invite. Comparison that whispers insidious lies that you're falling behind your peers, a quiet resentment that subtly poisons all your subsequent reactions, an overdeveloped sense of self-protection that cleverly disguises itself as essential wisdom or emotional numbness that you wrongly interpret as spiritual strength or resilience. And here is the twist that makes this internal drifting so incredibly lethal. Chosen ones often keep functioning perfectly. You continue to pray with discipline. You continue to serve others and help the needy. You continue to appear for all your obligations and commitments. You continue to speak words of affirmation and life, and you hold firmly onto your core faith, because on the outside, nothing appears broken or compromised. You are still moving forward, striving and pushing, but internally, there is a gradual and unseen hardening taking place, a spiritual stiffness, a quiet internal disconnect that you can't quite identify because you still feel outwardly capable and functional. This is precisely why this slow, internal drift is so perilous. It develops far beneath the surface of your conscious awareness. You don't experience a catastrophic collapse. Instead, you slowly calcify. You don't rebel against your faith, you simply become emotionally detached. You don't overtly reject your divine connection, you just stop hearing those clear, supernatural promptings with the same vibrant clarity as before. And the enemy is fully aware that he doesn't need to destroy a chosen one with a loud, public spectacle. He simply needs you to silently tolerate a minor, unaddressed spiritual fracture long enough for it to become a deeply rooted spiritual infection, cleverly disguised as necessary strength, sound logic, or the imperative to protect your peace. By the time this subtle internal infection grows in magnitude, it doesn't manifest looking like an attack. It presents itself as simple physical exhaustion. It looks like uncharacteristic frustration. It takes the form of increasing isolation. It sounds like the vague complaint, "I just don't feel like myself lately." And this is the part you absolutely cannot miss, chosen one. The very moment you begin this silent, internal drift, something else begins to stir and awaken within your spirit. Something heaven is urgently trying to expose before it solidifies into your single greatest spiritual obstruction. We are only at the initial stages of this revelation. The truth that is coming next will unearth a reality most set apart individuals never recognize until it has already caused significant, lasting harm. Chosen one, there comes a specific point in every significant spiritual challenge when the wound you suffered ceases to bleed but begins to transform, not into genuine healing and not into hard-won wisdom, but into something far more subtle, deceptive, and ultimately more dangerous than the original pain itself. The actual threat is never the moment you were initially hurt. The real spiritual danger begins the moment your heart adapts and adjusts itself to accommodate that unhealed hurt. Every chosen one navigates seasons marked by betrayals that cut too deeply, instances of injustice that felt senseless, periods of profound loneliness that seemed almost punitive, and treatment so profoundly unfair it left a palpable, ugly mark on your spirit. But heaven wants you to grasp a profound truth that very few dedicated believers ever fully internalize. The initial wound itself is not the ultimate weapon. The wound is merely the point of entry, the doorway. What is allowed to grow and fester inside that wound? That is what slowly but surely begins to warp and reshape your entire inner world without you even realizing the extent of the change. Emotional pain, when left unaddressed and unprocessed, does not simply remain static pain. It changes its form. It morphs into emotional withdrawal, where you pull back little by little, falsely justifying it by saying you're just protecting your energy. In reality, you are actively closing the door to the very connections heaven sent to support and strengthen you. It becomes passive resentment, a collection of tiny, unexpressed irritations that accumulate like fine dust in the corners of your heart, creating dense shadows where slow, creeping bitterness can quietly make its nest. It transforms into unspoken offense, those moments of slight you publicly let slide but privately carry, convincing yourself the incident wasn't significant enough to discuss, while your spirit quietly tightens every single time that person's name is even mentioned. It manifests as a palpable loss of spiritual compassion. Your heart no longer feels the instinctive softness it once did. It no longer breaks as easily for others. It no longer responds with the instant, reflexive grace that was once the defining hallmark of your unique calling. It settles in as a pervasive coldness, subtle, often invisible to others, but devastatingly real, a distinct cooling of the pure warmth that once radiated from your very presence. It can even evolve into quiet, internal wishes that someone who hurt you would finally face some form of karmic consequence, even though you would never dare utter such a thought aloud because you know it violates your spiritual commitment. And here is the single most dangerous aspect of this whole process. Every one of these negative emotional shifts feels completely deserved. You feel justified in your withdrawal. You feel absolutely entitled to your new emotional distance. You feel as though the pain you endured has somehow earned you the right to be different, to be guarded now. And because it feels so completely justified, you cease to question its presence. This is the trap. When the heart begins to close, even microscopically, the spiritual senses don't instantly shut down. They gradually dim, much like a lamp running low on fuel. Your clear intuition becomes obscured, not gone, just heavily fogged. Your sharp discernment changes its core nature, shifting from objective clarity into paralyzing suspicion, and you begin to accept this suspicion as a sign of your discernment maturing. Your intimate connection with the divine doesn't vanish, but it starts to feel distant, less vibrant, less immediate, more like reaching and striving than effortlessly receiving. And deep intrinsic joy, your spiritual birthright, becomes something you have to actively try to manufacture and feel instead of something that flows naturally and powerfully through you. You are still a chosen vessel. Your unique calling remains completely unchanged. Your destiny is still fundamentally intact, but the clear, powerful flow of heaven through you becomes restricted. This is not because you have committed a sin in the conventional sense, nor is it a sign of blatant rebellion. It is because the original wound changed its form, and you failed to notice the subtle metamorphosis. Unresolved pain inevitably leaves behind an emotional residue, an invisible, tacky film that settles over the heart, subtly altering every perception, every reaction, every spiritual signal, and every moment of communion with the divine. And here's the most critical hidden twist. The more you permit this residue to settle, the more it convinces you that this version of you, the guarded, detached one, is actually the stronger, the smarter, the more spiritually awake version. But in stark reality, it's the highly guarded one, the spiritually dimmed one, the emotionally distanced one, the version of you that simply survives but is no longer actively thriving. If this emotional residue is allowed to persist and settle further, it evolves into something even more devastating, something that begins to actively shape your entire spiritual reality in ways you absolutely never intended. And that final, critical transformation is what we are preparing to uncover in the next moment of revelation. Chosen one. This is the moment where the unseen reality becomes truly undeniable. This is where heaven's perspective transitions from a gentle, quiet warning to a necessary, powerful intervention. Because while most people are focused on checking off actions, behavior, effort, and superficial appearances, heaven is looking at a place infinitely more sacred, the interior climate of your heart, not your prayers, not your service, not your discipline, but the emotional atmosphere that exists beneath everything you do. And here is a profound, powerful truth almost no one has the courage to speak aloud. Heaven responds differently to a chosen one than to anyone else. You carry a specific mantle. You carry a great purpose. You carry spiritual authority, and that authority absolutely demands purity, not unattainable perfection, but complete, honest alignment. So, when silent offense, deep resentment, hidden bitterness, or any other emotional toxin begins to firmly take root inside a chosen one's heart, heaven does not instantly strike. Heaven does not punish. Heaven does something far more strategic, far more mysterious, and ultimately far more protective of your destiny. It gently withdraws its clarity. The visions that were once crystal clear begin to blur and soften. The instincts you trusted without a moment of hesitation now feel uncertain and compromised. The internal yes and no that guided you with supernatural precision start flickering unreliably, like a weak, struggling signal trying desperately to reconnect. Heaven also intentionally slows down the movement around you. Doors that used to open effortlessly now seem to be completely frozen. Divine favor that once flowed freely begins to stall. Your spiritual momentum suddenly feels like the intense effort of running underwater. This is not because the divine has rejected you. It is because heaven refuses to grant full, divine acceleration to a heart that is actively carrying spiritual poison. A heart that is still wounded will mismanage true blessings, often transforming glorious opportunities into exhausting burdens, open doors into significant distractions, and nurturing relationships into unnecessary battlegrounds. An offended spirit inevitably misinterprets the very signs of God, seeing harsh warnings where heaven is offering gentle guidance, seeing cold rejection where the divine is actually instituting vital protection. A bitter chosen one, without realizing it, becomes spiritually exposed and vulnerable. This is because bitterness is spiritually magnetic. It attracts negative interference. It subtly summons unnecessary confusion. It calls forth severe tests you were never truly meant to endure. And this is why so many chosen ones suddenly feel inexplicably spiritually stuck, as if nothing in their life is moving forward. They feel unheard in prayer, as if their words simply evaporate before they can reach heaven. They feel profoundly exhausted for no apparent physical reason, as if something internal is relentlessly draining them. They feel intensely disconnected from their spiritual gifts that once flowed naturally and effortlessly. They are often plagued by nighttime struggles, disturbing dreams, sleep paralysis, and random, low-grade spiritual attacks. They are overwhelmed by sudden, unpredictable waves of deep fatigue, pervasive heaviness, or emotional volatility. You find yourself thinking, "I am under spiritual attack," but fail to realize that the unaddressed internal state of your heart created the doorway the enemy simply walked through without a fight. But here is the revelation that will change your entire perspective. This state is not divine abandonment. This is not punitive punishment. This is not heaven turning away from your call. This is a divine pause. It is the specific kind of pause heaven employs only with those it has chosen deeply, intentionally, and intimately. It is a pause that speaks, "I absolutely cannot allow you to walk forward into your next season with a heart posture that will actively sabotage your own blessing." It is a pause that affirms, "Before I can promote you to the next level, I must first purify what your past pain has distorted." It is a pause that declares, "Your next greater season demands a version of you that bitterness cannot and will not accompany." Heaven deliberately halts forward movement not to cause you harm, but to fiercely protect the sacred, powerful potential resting within you. Clarity is not merely a reward, it is a serious responsibility. Momentum is not simply a gift, it is a sacred stewardship. And the ultimate blessing is not just favor, it is a weight that only a fully healed heart possesses the strength and stability to truly carry. But chosen one, the instant your heart begins to return to full alignment, even the slightest shift, absolutely everything that was paused begins to move again, often faster and with more force than ever before. This realization brings us to a profound truth, something most chosen ones only truly understand after the breakthrough has fully manifested. The very experience that felt like an excruciating delay was in reality the perfect, necessary preparation for the single greatest release and acceleration of your entire life. And that powerful truth is waiting for you to embrace it right now in this final step. Chosen one, the moment you become acutely aware of the internal drift, the settling residue, the silent spiritual hardening of your heart, something utterly extraordinary activates in the spirit realm. Heaven doesn't demand unattainable perfection. Heaven doesn't expect you to have flawless emotions or unshakable, unwavering strength in every moment. Heaven simply requests one thing: radical, unfiltered honesty. An honesty that is willing to crack the protective shell around your heart and let the pure light flood in once again. True spiritual freedom never begins with force or self-discipline. It begins with clear, honest recognition. The unseen, spiritual trap instantly loses all its power the moment you boldly turn toward it for examination instead of instinctually running away from it. This moment is the beginning of your spirit's full realignment. This moment is when your spiritual authority awakens to its fullest potential. This moment is when the divine flow begins to pour through you again with unhindered power. And here is the practical, actionable path for chosen ones, those marked by a divine assignment, to free themselves completely from what was attempting to grow within them unnoticed. First, you must acknowledge the internal tension without trying to deny or minimize it. Every time you utter, "I'm fine," when you're clearly not, every time you try to compress an intense emotion instead of fully facing it, every time you silence genuine discomfort instead of investigating its root, you are reinforcing the very chains that were weakening you. Healing cannot fully enter a heart that refuses to be seen in its true state. You absolutely cannot release what you keep constantly rationalizing away. You must permit yourself to look inward with radical honesty, but without any self-judgment. You are not exposing a personal weakness. You are exposing the core lie that was actively weakening your true strength. Second, Intentionally identify the person or specific moment that still holds a measurable negative charge over your emotional state. This is not for the purpose of blaming them or needlessly reliving the pain, but simply to locate the root cause. The Holy Spirit will always bring the true root to the surface the instant you become fully willing to see it. Third, you must fully release the emotional charge, not the memory itself. Forgiveness is not about forced forgetting. Forgiveness is not about pretending the hurt never occurred. Forgiveness is simply this: the intentional, conscious removal of the spiritual poison that was attached to the memory, the powerful reclamation of the vital energy that moment had been draining from you, the decisive cutting of the spiritual cord that was anchoring you to a negative vibration you have spiritually outgrown. Fourth, you must reclaim your energy, intentionally, boldly, and without any hesitation or apology. Declare aloud, "No emotional residue has permission to drain my spiritual power." Speak this as many times as necessary, because emotional residue is insidious. It attaches itself to your reactions, your passing thoughts, your sleep, and even your physical body. When you fully reclaim your energy, you fully reclaim your authority. When you reclaim your authority, you instantly reclaim your full spiritual momentum. Fifth, reopen your spiritual channel. This is the moment where absolutely everything shifts. The instant the heart softens, even a small amount, heaven floods back in with divine force. Clarity returns, not just mental acuity, but profound spiritual clarity, the effortless ability to instantly sense, interpret, and recognize divine signals. Your intuition sharpens to a razor's edge. The fog lifts completely. A profound, deep peace settles over you, not the shallow peace of distraction, but the deep, spiritual peace that re-enters your very bones and powerfully reminds you of who you truly are. And your anointing, the powerful insight and spiritual density placed within you, will flow again with purity, strength, and directed purpose. Freedom is not merely an emotion you hope to feel. It is a fundamental, profound realignment. Freedom is not a mere feeling. It is a decisive spiritual shift, a moment where the heaviness immediately loosens its grip and something ancient, something divine, something fiercely alive wakes up and surges inside you again. And here is what most chosen ones utterly fail to realize. The very moment you shatter the hold of this unseen trap, absolutely everything that was mysteriously delayed begins to powerfully move. Everything that felt spiritually frozen begins to thaw. Everything that was painfully tangled begins to effortlessly unravel. The blessing you had mistakenly believed was denied to you was, in profound reality, simply waiting for this exact healed heart posture. The intense clarity you begged and pleaded for returns the very second the residue is released. The momentum you felt you had lost comes rushing back with unimaginable force. But chosen one, there is one final, crucial revelation you must hear. One ultimate truth that ties this entire message together. One final moment designed to powerfully ignite your spirit and seal your break through forever, and that arrives right now in this conclusion. Chosen one, please slow your breathing and absorb this for a moment. What is occurring within your spirit right now is not ordinary or casual. This moment of realization did not simply stumble into your life by chance. Heaven meticulously orchestrated it, timed it, and delivered it with absolute precision because there was something subtle lodged inside you that had been tolerated for far too long, something quietly draining your essential joy, blurring your inner vision, disrupting your spiritual rhythm, and dimming the powerful flame you were meant to carry for the world. And the divine refused to let you walk another single day with a heart that was only half awake. You were never attacked because you are spiritually weak. You were attacked precisely because you are a genuine threat to the kingdom of darkness, because your spirit carries significant weight, because your mere presence naturally shifts spiritual atmospheres, because your ultimate destiny requires an inner world that is clean, perfectly aligned, razor sharp, and totally uncompromised. The enemy targeted your raw emotions because he could not, and never can, touch your calling. He targeted your heart because he could not touch your anointing. He targeted your clarity because he could not touch your fundamental identity. But today, the hidden trap has been utterly exposed. Today, the poison has completely lost its tenacious hold. Today, the residue that clouded your inner world has begun its irreversible breakup. Something inside you, something ancient, something divine, something unmistakably yours, is powerfully rising again. Your heart is becoming light again, open again, fully aligned again, and spiritually free again. And when a chosen one achieves full internal alignment, everything in their external world begins to powerfully shift. The moment you release what was poisoning you, doors that previously refused to budge suddenly and effortlessly unlock. Visions that had gone completely silent begin speaking again with urgency. Discernment returns with a razor-sharp clarity you haven't felt in years. A deep, abiding peace settles over you like fresh, clean air entering a room that has been sealed shut for years. And your anointing, the core spiritual power heaven placed within you, will rise to an intense level you haven't truly felt in years. This is not because the divine changed in any way, but because you just successfully reclaimed the sacred space he needed to flow through you unhindered. Chosen one, hear this final, definitive truth. This is your turning point. This is the precise moment where your entire story powerfully tilts toward elevation. This is where the heaviness ends and the true supernatural acceleration begins. Heaven is speaking this truth over you right now. Now you can rise again. Now nothing is holding you back. Your path is open. To seal this lie, faltering moment in the spirit, I urge you to comment below right now. Write, I release what was holding me. Write it boldly. Write it with profound, unshakable intention. Write it as a clear declaration that heaven can fully acknowledge and the enemy cannot possibly ignore. Because when you declare it, you finalize the breaking, you definitively mark the shift, and you step into your next chapter with undeniable authority. Chosen one, rise, your heart is ready, your spirit is steady, your path is open, and your destiny is waiting.